Just came across this clip by the legend Candace Owens, and I had to share it. We're going to be sharing our reactions through it all of what just took place about a couple of days ago. Many of you already know what happened. The winner won, and there are some people that don't like it. Let's go ahead and get into it right now.
For some of us, it is a happy Thursday. Yesterday, I was a bit gloaty. I'm not going to lie. Today, I would like to be more sensitive to those that are still reeling from the election results.
There's actually a good reason why you should not be gloating over your enemies. It says in Proverbs chapter 24, watch this, that if you do, God will not be pleased at that, and what he thought to do to them, he will not. Okay, watch this. Rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, and let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth, lest the Lord see it and it displease him, and he turn away his wrath from him. We want the wrath of God to go up on devils. Let's continue.
Like these young people on TikTok. Take a listen.
How did we get here? How did we get here? What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now?
All I can say is how dare you?
If you voted for that man, if you voted for anybody other than Kamala, and you live in one of the states that it was, close, or if you didn't vote, you.
Senate race. It's not gonna happen. Go Kamala.
I chose family, I chose women, I chose America. I love you.
How the is this still happening? All I've ever known politically is hatred.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
I'm sorry to all my friends who are Trump supporters. I don't understand how scared of this man I am.
It is not pretty out there, my friends. It is not pretty, but we are here for them. Also, there's a Democratic civil war that seems to be brewing. They're at each other's throats right now with the Kamala blame game. They're wondering, did she lose because of racism, sexism, misogyny, or is it because we suck and everybody hates us? We're going to show you what they've come up with thus far, specifically Senator Bernie Sanders. He has an interesting take on everything. Plus, they just cannot stop rolling out the children of to guilt trip us about having reelected Donald Trump. They're like, okay, the children over here are sad. This time they're rolling out the children of illegals. You are not going to believe this clip that is coming out of MSNBC. Actually, you probably will believe it. And lastly, you may have heard that President Biden addressed the nation, but do you care? Like, do you want me to cover it? Because if you want me to, I will. But I kind of feel like I'd rather show you funny TikTok videos because I'm kind of on the fence about covering it. Whatever. We will see. Welcome back to Candace. I'm sensitive today. I'm very compassionate today. I get why those young people are crying because, look, the Democratic platform has really been all about pulling at heartstrings, right? It's all feelings over the facts, the feelings over safety, the feelings over reality. Of course, you should be fine with inflation because just think about how sad Zelensky's going to be if you don't send him your hard-earned money. The child says she's a non-binary mermaid. Well, of course, we should just add it as another gender or else her feelings would be hurt. And one of the recent crazier pushes has been that we ought to feel bad for people that are breaking the law. Like, we should understand why they have to break the law. Okay, so Trump wins, and rather than wanting to learn anything from the results, they get right back to work trying to make people feel sad for people that are going to be victimized by law and order. Again, oh no, get it? He's president, now he's going to bring back law and order, and think about all of the victims of that. They did a segment, I'm not kidding, on MSNBC where they spoke to the children of illegals who all look like adults to me, by the way, and they wanted to get their take on Trump's promise to deport millions of illegals, which may or may not include their parents. Now, if you're listening to this on audio only, be warned that these children of illegals don't actually speak any English. So I'm going to have to interpret for you guys along the way. So let's take a listen.
Once you're hydrated, you need to connect with the fact that a defining feature of Trump 2.0 is the promise to decimate American communities by targeting immigrants for mass deportations. Now, this could amount to the expulsion of millions of people who are already contributing members of our society and who live here with their families. On election night, MSNBC's Paula Ramos joined mixed status families in Phoenix, Arizona to monitor the outcomes and to listen to their fears and concerns. And here is what some of them had to say.
Es algo muy espantoso y me da mucha ansiedad pensar en lo que esto significará por la comunidad inmigrante, siendo hija de papás inmigrantes y indocumentadas. También me da mucha ansiedad.
Okay, so that was Regina, and she's basically just saying that she feels a lot of anxiety going into the election because she is the daughter of 2 undocumented migrants, and so she therefore just has a lot of anxiety. Here's the next person.
Ahorita mismo no sé qué sentir. Creo que solo me da mucho miedo, como no solo por mi familia, pero todas las familias como en mi comunidad.
So that's Fidel, and similarly, he's echoing the sentiment that he doesn't really know what to feel, but he just feels fearful for all of the people in the immigrant community and all of his family and friends. And here is Joy Reid's takeaway from that anxiety and fear.
Now, having heard that, it must be said that Donald Trump made major gains with Latino voters, particularly Latino male voters, last night.
So she's like, I don't understand. How could Latinos have voted for him, seeing that these people are so anxious and fearful? And it might be because those Latino voters are citizens who obey the law. I'm just guessing here. And there's a lot that I like to say in response to that particular clip. Foremost, it is borderline comical that none of the children speak English, because that tells us just one of 2 things. One, they're either brand new here and therefore should have no problem going back home, or they have made 0 effort to acclimate themselves to our country. And there's something about that to me that just feels so arrogant. Like, if you're going to come into this country and you're going to explain to us that your parents did so illegally, wouldn't you just make your best efforts, try to acclimate yourself to our society and learn our language? Is that just me feeling like that just is wrong, that they don't engage in that way? And the other thing of note here, and this is really important, I want you to lean in, it's very important. Their parents broke the law. Okay, so this is what happens everywhere in the entire world when your parents break the law. It's actually quite audacious to be willing to appear on camera and to ask for sympathy after your parents have broken the law. Like, think of any other scenario. If I was like, hi, yes, I'm watching because this person is about to be elected the sheriff, and my dad broke into the neighbor's house and he's just been taking free stuff. But if this sheriff gets elected in this town, he's going to take my dad away. It's going to separate our family. My dad's going to go away for breaking the law, and it's going to separate our family. Yes, that's how this works. When you break the law, you risk being separated from your family as a consequence of having broken the law. And by the way, there is, in fact, a solution to all of this anxiety and all of this sadness. In this given scenario, you're actually not required to suffer separation from your parents at all. In fact, the former head of ICE is a man named Tom Homan. You may have heard of him. It was when Trump's first administration, the first 4 years, and he went on 60 Minutes and fielded questions about the costs that are associated with deportation, as well as how families that face deportation might stay together. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is it worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
that is just the reality of the circumstances, is that everybody can go back home. If that is something that is so crucial to you and you want to stay with your mom and your dad, those people obviously look like they're adults or about to be adults, you can always have the option to go back home with them. There is actually a legal process to getting into this country. I know because I married an immigrant, and the process is long. It's a lot of paperwork and it's really annoying, but you have to know what it looks like and what it feels like for us when we are doing things the legal way, waiting years in line for my husband to be able to receive a passport, doing everything right, having to go through work visas, everything that we have done for the last 5 years, only to see this woman sit up and be like, yeah, my parents didn't do that, but it would be really unfair if you sent them back. I just don't understand how they don't understand. And it is just this sort of consistent mainstream media delusion that is difficult for most Americans to come to terms with. They're campaigning, essentially they have been campaigning and telling the public, really, you should do it or somebody else is going to be sad, or do it or you're a racist, do it or you're a sexist. That is pretty much all they say. That is the pitch. They've become really a skipping CD, like artificial unintelligence. They can't learn anything at all. And when someone tries to interject a different thought or a perspective, they simply just go back to their factory settings. Take a listen to Alyssa Farah. Okay, that's the fake Republican, the mandatory fake Republican that they have on The View. And they go, oh, I'm a Republican, but I actually happen to always agree with the people on The View. Okay, well, that's Alyssa Farah's role. And she does occasionally say some things that make sense. And she sat down there and tried to explain to Sunny Hostin, like, maybe there's another angle here as to why Latinos are voting for Trump. Take a listen to this.
So you have people talking about, well, how did he win Michigan? Because Democrats are saying, oh, she should have talked more about Gaza. No, union halls were empty. Dearborn went for Donald Trump. This is not about a micro issue like Gaza. It's people saying the cost of living is too high. The wages are too low. My life felt better under him. And I know what we'll say. Well, Goldman Sachs says the economy will do better under her. The analysts at UPenn and Wharton. We'll see. Nobody who is struggling to make ends meet at the table, like, how am I going to pay this bill, cares what Wharton professors say about the economy.
Misinformation.
Let me. Just one more thing I want to say. This issue of abortion, which I hope we can unpack more. There are a lot of women who cared about abortion, but they were in states like Pennsylvania where they don't have an ultra restrictive abortion law. They were voting more because they're like pocketbook issues matter more than if a woman in Alabama is able to get an abortion.
But they're going to do worse under a Trump administration. The only people that are going to do well are the millionaires and the billionaires.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border. The border crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not.
Who's there?
That's it. There can be no other reason. It's misogyny. It's sexism. That's why the Latinos are doing it. And it's going to get even better because later on, now they're saying that Latinos are racist. I promise you, that's the new takeaways. Like, we didn't realize that racism has gotten so bad that Latinos are extremely racist. They are white supremacists. But we'll get to that. First, I'm going to remind you guys about preborn. Now, the estimates show that more than 1 million babies were killed by abortion in 2023, the highest number of abortions since 2012. We have to fight back against this evil because when they shout abortion, we have to shout life. How do you do that? We join hands with Preborn, the largest pro-life organization in the country that sponsors ultrasounds for clinics in the highest abortion areas, because when a mother considering abortion meets her baby on ultrasound and hears the heartbeat, it doubles that baby's chance at life. Every day, Preborn rescues 200 lives, which is a true miracle. By the time I finish this ad, 2 babies will have taken by abortion. Just $28, could be the difference between life and death. So please join the fight by sponsoring 1, 2, 3, or 200 ultrasounds. All gifts are indeed tax deductible. So to donate, you can just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or you can visit preborn.com/Candace. Again, that's preborn.com/Candace. Okay. It's Democratic Civil War. Bound to happen, by the way, because you have a bunch of people and they're pretending to be united behind Kamala. Nobody really knows how she got there. And there's always people in the party that know what they are doing is insane, but they're fearful to say anything because then they're going to get eaten by their own. And the left is always in lockstep behind their candidates. God forbid you say anything that goes off the laid track before you. So what you have now, which is super interesting, is Bernie Sanders has issued a statement. And here's what I want to say. Bernie Sanders, his policies are awful, his solutions are wrong, and he is indeed a socialist. But when he ran, he was able to seize the populist left. Like, he accurately is at least able to diagnose the problems, right? He's at least able to diagnose the problems. He just doesn't really know what to prescribe to get rid of the problems. Anyways, here's what he had to say. I'm going to read this to you because I actually thought he did a really good job here. He writes to his fellow Democrats, "It should come as no surprise that a Democratic Party, which has abandoned the working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. First, it was the white working class, and now it is the Latino and Black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they are right. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Today, despite an explosion in technology and worker productivity, many young people will have a worse standard of living than their parents, and many of them worry that artificial intelligence and robotics will make a bad situation even worse. So today, despite spending far more per capita than other countries, we remain the only wealthy nation not to guarantee health care to all as a human right, and we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We alone among major countries cannot even guarantee paid family and medical leave. Today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions funding the extremist Netanyahu's government, all-out war against the Palestinian people, which has led to the horrific humanitarian disaster of mass malnutrition and the starvation of thousands of children. Will the big money interests and well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from this disastrous campaign? Will they understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? Do they have any ideas as to how we can take on the increasingly powerful oligarchy, which has so much economic and political power? Probably not. In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice need to have some very serious political discussions. Stay tuned. So look, he's calling out lobbyists. He's calling out the fact that the elites are completely out of touch, have no idea what they're doing. They really just went with all of these celebrity endorsements and don't realize that it is true. Young people have a lot of anxiety about the future. They don't know how they're going to be able to afford anything. And there's nobody that is more elitist right now than Democrats, which is why I love this clip. Also sounding very sensible is Anna Kasparian. She has actually grown increasingly more sensible. I would almost argue that she is very much in the middle right now. She used to be a far leftist. When I first got started in politics, she maybe doesn't want to admit that she's very much come over now to a more sensible moderate position. I would almost say moderate right. And during election night, she was correctly calling out her side for all the mistakes that they had made. She didn't seem very shocked, and she wasn't having an exact meltdown as the results came in. Here is Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks. Take a listen.
I feel like there's a lot of cope going on. I'm going to keep it real. And the fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris chose to try to convince disaffected Republicans, all three of them, to vote for her by campaigning with a neocon, campaigning with Liz Cheney, a deeply unpopular politician who was voted out of her congressional seat because even the Republican Party has changed in regard to their views on neoconservatism. You know, the big cover-up in regard to Biden's mental health, that was a giant mistake by the Democratic Party, and they're suffering consequences for that. We have to be real about this, guys. We just do. And, you know, magical thinking isn't going to help the Democratic Party. They're not going to win with magical thinking. They have to come to terms with the mistakes that they've made, and it shouldn't be a close election, but it is. And it's not looking good for Kamala Harris.
So she has fully stepped outside of the delusion, and it really has now just become a party of magical thinking where they don't even care about the reality of things. It's all about like, hey, if we wish it and will it, then it will be. And clearly it is not being. So it's like, when are you going to switch up this strategy? And so it's super interesting to hear her say that on election night and to rightly call out, we have not talked about that enough, the fact that Kamala teamed up with Liz Cheney. We hate Liz Cheney. Nobody likes Liz Cheney. There's like the one thing the left and the right have agreed on forever is like Dick Cheney and his family. Awful. Like the stuff that they did, the people that they've killed overseas, pushing the military industrial complex. I mean, it's every reason why no one really buys that Kamala Harris had no power as a VP when Dick Cheney was running the White House for 8 years, right? And calling all the shots. And we know that they're an unbelievably corrupt family. And Kamala was like, yeah, I'm going to lock arms with her and get whose vote? I mean, it was just so silly. Blunder after blunder after blunder. But amazingly, and this is what's getting really interesting, to see Anna go after these delusional leftists, like in a way that you Can't imagine she would have done in the past. Like, I feel like in the world of BLM, you could never imagine Anna Kasparian having gone after Nicole Hannah-Jones. I'm going to show you what Nicole Hannah-Jones tweeted. She's essentially somehow a Pulitzer Prize winner. I don't know, it's DEI stuff, you know. But this is what she tweets, these tweets following the election. This is her diagnosis of what's happened and how they lost. It was naive to believe that if Kamala Harris avoided discussing her race and gender, that if she evaded so-called identity politics, that she would nullify the liability of being a Black woman seeking the presidency in a country where racism and misogyny are embedded in the culture. This is a country that responded to a multiracial electorate sending the first Black president to the White House with a minority of the white vote by electing an openly white racist man over the person who could have become the nation's first woman president. She goes on, anti-Blackness continues to, by the way, drink every time you hear the word Black if you want to die. Anti-Blackness continues to be a powerful force in this country, and anti-Blackness cannot just be attributed to white Americans. It's my favorite part. The shock about the significant increase in Latinos choosing Trump with his anti-immigrant rhetoric, family separation policy, and insults of Latin countries over a Black woman tells me too many people fail to understand that anti-Blackness is deeply embedded in Latino cultures as well, and that the interests of those who are part of that very large multiracial, multinationality Latino category are not, and not ever have they been necessarily aligned with those of Black people, simply because many white Americans do not consider them to be white. This is why, as I argued in my essay on the color blindness scam, that we must stop lumping all non-white people into a single of color group. This woman is really out here trying to convince us that Latinos are racist. She's like, they're just racist. Like, this is amazing. And it's like, how is that going to work for you? How, if that's going to be now the adjusted approach, like you just keep calling everybody Hitler, everybody racist, and it just keeps the party of Hitler and racism just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And now you've arrived at like, yeah, no, the Latinos, they're racist too. These Puerto Ricans, these Dominicans are racist too. That's the problem. They're anti-Black. You anti-Black Puerto Ricans, how dare you? How dare you? Seriously. It is completely nuts. She is so crazy. It's unbelievable. Well, Anna Kasparian actually replied to her, and she just said this, and it's accurate. She wrote, "This is delusional," which I think she said, "This is effing delusional," or "This is something delusional. Why is it okay to be openly bigoted like this?" And yes, Anna, that is what so many people recognize by the Democratic Party. They scream racism when in fact they are the racists. They just cannot process how a person might be able to think beyond their skin. Maybe they don't realize that people might be thinking not with their skin, but with their brain. Could you imagine people thinking with their brains? Yeah, no, not this woman, not Nicole Hannah. She's like, no, absolutely not. They everyone's just becoming increasingly more racist, and we're going backwards. And before you know it, we're going to blink, and we are all going to be enslaved this time by the Puerto Ricans. Okay. So really, what are we contending with? What are they contending with from the Democratic Party? These are just people who don't want to face reality, people who are legitimately, I believe, suffering from a delusional disorder. Because how else could you describe that? Like, you're just saying Latinos are anti-Black. They're choosing to be that delusional. They want to keep up the facade. They want to keep up the performance, even as their tribe gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And who better to give us an example of what I'm talking about when I say utterly delusional and really just speaking to hear yourself speak than Jimmy Kimmel. And I hate to tell you guys, but he's crying again. Take a listen.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
Nope. Beg to differ. It was a great night for people that voted for him, and it's been a great week, and it's going to be a great 4 years. But I just have to call out Jimmy Kimmel. We should have put together a compilation. Do you understand how much this man cries on demand? You know, it was a terrible night for his wife. You know how embarrassing it is to just see a grown man cry over Ukraine? He lost it on Ukraine. You think that he has ever stood up there and cried about the gas prices or like the grocery prices or cried on behalf of the Americans, people that are working with their hands and literally paycheck to paycheck because Zelensky's wife needs to go on another shopping spree in Paris, which is what she has done? I mean, there have been articles about the corruption of where our money is going. It can't even be audited. We're just turning a bunch of Ukrainians into oligarchs. They purchased, this is a fact, they have purchased so many yachts. You should have seen the amount of Ukrainians that were rolling up in yachts when I was on vacation in Saint Tropez. I was not on a yacht. I was just walking the harbor, and there was just a bunch of Ukrainians. It's so insulting. And he's up there crying to keep it going because what is he? He's a fraud. He is a guard for the establishment. His job is to just propagandize, not to understand, right? But to be angry when people take a stand against the deep state because he's a part of the deep state. And I don't know how he went from a person who was once on the Man Show, and if you want to talk about misogyny and sexism, we should go find some old clips of Jimmy Kimmel, to this sad, pathetic excuse of a crybaby man. Man up, Jimmy Kimmel. Put some hair on your chest. You are so embarrassing. I just can't watch this man cry anymore. It's just making me sad on behalf of his wife. It's making me angry on behalf of his wife. I just want to punch him in the chest, you know? I can't get violent here. I can't get violent. I'm already demonetized on YouTube. All right, guys. Anyways, before we get into this next segment, I want to remind you about American financing because the economy has been a major burden on the average American. The wages are flat, expenses are up, and it is very hard to manage to pay all the bills without using credit cards. So if you're a homeowner and you are frustrated with that cycle, you should make a 10-minute phone call. It's no obligation. Today, you can call my friends at American Financing. Interest rates are coming down, and they are now in the low fives. So if you are constantly carrying a credit card balance each and every month with a rate in the 20s, American Financing can show you how to put your hard-earned equity to work and get you out of debt. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving their customers an average of $800 a month. And if you get started today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. So call today at 800-795-1210. Again, that number is 800-795-1210. Or you can just visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, you guys, the celebrity reckoning continues. That's been the best part of this week. Honestly, so many obvious highlights to just answer to the celebrity call, the fake tears, them trying to tell us how to live when they just are so removed from reality. I mean, just people following around, answering their every beck and call. And for them to lower themselves, because that's what they're doing, lowering themselves to pretend that they understand the struggles of the average American people, it was an insult. And guess what? This time we insulted them right back. So I saw this on Instagram. This is former Real Housewives of New York star Bethany Frankel. And she's always been quite rational. Like I've always kind of liked her takes on a lot of things. I have no idea whether she's left or right. I would assume because she runs a business, she can't be a far leftist. Maybe she's a moderate. But she posted this about what she's learned regarding celebrity endorsements from this election cycle and its results. Take a listen.
Hot take, celebrities no longer have influence. Let me prove it. So there are like 300 million people in this country. There are 150 million voters, give or take. And the combined social media followings of the people that endorsed Kamala, meaning Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Selena, Chelsea, Amy, everybody, like powerful people, Obama, Hillary, the combined social media, Jennifer Lopez, etc. The combined number is over 2 billion followers. So over 2 billion followers, and yes, of course, it's what votes matter and what really did it, but over 2 billion followers did not move the needle for 150 million voters. So that means it's spinning wheels, it's useless, it's a flex, and it doesn't even do anything. So, you're welcome. John Legend, Chrissy Teigen, De Niro. You can add your own people because there's so many. Interesting, no? What does that mean? That's why LA's taking a beating right now. In real estate, the industry, it's widely known. Very interesting time. The age of authenticity is. Heard of Jay-Z? And what about like television show media impressions? The entire cast of The View. You know, like we just have to adjust instead of just jamming the same narrative down people's throats overall in what works and how to communicate with an audience.
I mean, think about that. She is so right. And to hear the metrics in that way, like just their combined followers, I mean, even if you just took two of them, Beyonce and Taylor Swift, the combined impressions, the combined articles that they're able to generate when they say something, and to realize that it made no impact. In fact, I think it did impact. I actually think it did make an impact. I think it had the reverse impact. I think that they now create repulsion. It is a repelling force when you get a celebrity up there to lecture and to come down from their thrones. Like, they never speak to us. And it's like election season. They're all like, oh my God, we're so accessible. We're so accessible. I love you guys. Here we are. J-Lo's crying. And everyone, again, suddenly they're in the crowd and they've just been conspicuously missing for 4 years. It's very insulting. And so it's really, I'm just, again, so proud that we gave them such a clear answer on it. Like, we just said, no, literally, F you. You don't care about us. We don't care about you. And it doesn't matter if we like your music. It doesn't matter if we like your acting abilities. It doesn't matter if we don't like your acting abilities. You just have no business telling us how to vote. And in the end, by the way, Bethany, I would say that they hurt their brands. I think they hurt their brands. I know so many people who just can't watch these people anymore. Like, I don't know how to engage with J-Lo after watching her strain so hard, try to get those tears out. I just don't know how to engage with her. And I've been off of the LeBron James chain, but whatever. The point is that she's absolutely right. And by the way, I was going to ask this question. Speaking of these celebrity endorsements, are they paying them to do these things? So I'm like, what is the thing that actually makes Eminem get out of bed to do something that's so cheesy and off-brand for like a rapper that wants people to think that he's hardcore? Like, are they actually just paying an absurd amount of money? Because I was thinking of that because I was completely blown away by this news item. Apparently, the Kamala Biden campaign, so first Biden, and then he passed off the money, obviously, to Kamala when he stepped down, raised $900 million from January 1st, 2023. And this is a tweet from a political writer who writes, Kamala Harris's campaign ended with at least $20 million in debt. Per two sources familiar, Harris raised over $1 billion, and she had $118 million in the bank as of October 16th. I'm like, what? She spent more like $150 million in 2 weeks? How? We are so gluttonous in America. The Guardian reported that in November, Kamala's campaign spent $450,000 a day to have ads displayed within the Las Vegas sphere. So just in the Las Vegas sphere, $450,000 a day in November. Like, we're just so gross. Like, I don't know why that somehow like grosses me out. And this is, by the way, Republicans, Democrats, this is how much we are spending. AIPAC spends $100 million. There's something about that just feels very wrong to me. And according to the New York Times, by the way, one piece of how they were spending was they decided to spend six figures to fly banners over 4 NFL games in October. Like, is that really the differentiator? When you're thinking about spending money, you're just like, yeah, let's fly some banners over 4 NFL games and just drop tons of cash. It's just, I don't know. It's very excessive, and the way that we are approaching our politics is really wrong and is gluttonous in nature. All right, guys, lastly, before I get into your comments, we should cover Joe Biden. I actually do not want to cover him at all. He did give a speech, and I just think I have to cover it just so I can pretend to do, I don't know, something responsible. I think it's weird to cover him because he's just not the president. I think that's kind of my perspective. It feels like we're being fake when we're like, the president has spoken. But we're going to give you 43 seconds of his speech about the peaceful transfer of power, just so I can check it off the to-do list and show my producer that I'm a really good person. Take a listen.
For over 200 years, America has carried out the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're the people. The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. And I assured him that I would direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve.
Okay, yay, I'm responsible. We covered it. Now moving on, I want to show you this glorious TikTok that made me laugh so hard because I've told you I've been a little bit sad about the Kamala thing. We've been covering her so much. I'm going to miss her accents. I'm going to miss looking into her genealogy. And then I saw this on TikTok, and this young woman is really good at pretending to be Kamala Harris. And I felt warmed again. Take a listen.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I grew up in the church. Okay, me and Maya, we went to Oakland Church, and we sang in the choir, just two middle-class little girls, you know. We had a lot of faith. Okay, because faith is a verb. Faith is an action. Weeping may come in the night, but joy cometh in the morning. Yeah. Jesus is good. Jesus bringing Jesus is black. Yeshua, I will rule in the name of Jesus. We ain't never going back. I am a black woman, okay? And we lead with faith. It's important. What do you think of that, Dougie?
Yeah, that was great, honey.
Was it black enough?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that.
I'm gonna try it again. I'm Kamala Harris, and I grew up in the
I just love that she's so good at the motions. That really is how she speaks. I just see you guys laughing in the chat. Like, it just, I don't know why she does that motion so much, but she really does do that. She should have done the laugh. The laugh is really what would have sent me, but I just love that. So I wanted to show that to you to end on a happy note, because I'm just so bored. Like, do I have to cover Joe Biden? It's crazy. All right, guys, I'm going to jump into your comments and see what is on your mind. First, just going to remind you about Field of Greens, because medical tests can reveal your body's biological age, which will show if you are aging prematurely. Better nutrition has been shown, obviously, to reverse one's bio age, and my hope of living longer and healthier is why I take Field of Greens every day. Field of Greens is an organic superfood fruit and vegetable drink unlike any other. It's serious nutrition. Listen to this. Field of Greens was approved for a university study that doctors believe may lower your body's biological age. That generally just means you're going to have better health. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like your heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and your immune system. So make Field of Greens your go-to for getting the nutrients that you need. I'm sure you're going to love it, but if you don't, you can return it and get a full refund. Right now, my listeners will get 15% off your first order and free rush shipping if you visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code Candace. Again, that's promo code Candace at fieldofgreens.com. Fieldofgreens.com. All right, what is on your mind today, ladies and gents? Let me jump and see what you guys are saying in the comment section. We have Zach. Zach says, I'm actually very sad and have pity on the people in the depths of despair because Trump won. They are victims of the media who have saturated them with lies and fear-mongering. The media is despicable. Yeah, I get you. I go back and forth, and I think for me, I just go, where are their parents, right? And one of them actually was a parent. You could see she's on the couch and she's crying, and so yeah, if that is your example, you're going to end up like your mother or like your father, and you're going to be completely deranged. And you have, coupled with that, the fact that the left controls the entire mainstream media apparatus, and it's a lot of fear mongering, but a little bit of this has to be common sense, right? I was on the left, didn't come from an overtly political family. I didn't have the tools to it wasn't like somebody came to me and was like, here, let me sit down and explain everything to you. It was just kind of common sense that brought me to a point. And it was because the rhetoric was just too insane. Like trying to make me believe that I was going to be in slave chains if I didn't vote against Trump was my wake up moment. I was like, okay, guys, that's a little too much. And so I say, bring back common sense. I've learned, obviously, that common sense is not that common. Mark writes, good work on Carmela. Thank you, Mark. Modern Beauty writes, funny how now libs and Democrats see their lunacy. Why didn't they see it before? I think they did. Like I said, Anna Kasparian was kind of turning the bend very slowly. She started to sound a lot more rational than she did when I first got on the scene 7 or 8 years ago. She was totally deranged and attacking me every single day because how dare someone be a black conservative? And I think what happened was they just kept going more and more deranged, like further and further left. And eventually when you do that, you're leaving the people behind that were with you. I'm not saying that she's still not very left on some issues and we have a ton of disagreements, but I can guarantee you now that her and I can have a conversation, whereas we definitely would not have been able to 8 years ago. And we would probably both learn a little bit from that conversation, whereas we definitely would not have 8 years ago. So it's good to see it. Part of it is thinking about Bernie. They rigged it against him too. Don't you guys remember? They rigged it against Bernie in favor of Hillary. Everyone was feeling the burn. I even thought he was cute. He's a cute little grandpa. He was so innocent. He looked innocent because I didn't really fully grasp his socialist policies. And so they are, I think, now really confronting how corrupt the system is when she just calls out the fact that they pretended that Joe Biden wasn't in the middle of mental decline. They're getting to a point where the stuff they're doing is so crazy. They're propping up people that are half dead and telling you everything's going to be fine. It's that Elmo meme, it's like everything is totally fine, and it's just like fire behind you. It's completely crazy. Il Sarto says, a few months ago, my coworker was excited to tell me that he was able to take his citizenship test in Spanish. I wanted to tell him off, but I didn't. Yeah, that's absurd. Like, what are we doing? Why are we catering? I mean, I could never. I just went to Japan. I couldn't imagine just like expecting everyone to be speaking in English to me and expecting everyone to think that if I moved there, that they would just have to change their society so that I can understand things. And yet, we do this in America. We do this. And our immigration test is a joke. Like when I was looking at the sample questions, me and my husband were comparing our country's immigration test, the sample questions. Go look at the UK one. It's like quite complicated. Ours is just like, how many states are there in America, the United States of America? Is it 2? Is it 4? Or is it 50? Like, I'm not kidding. It's like that simple and basic, and really that might be the reason why we aren't getting the best from all over the world. Okay. Sophia writes, Latina for Trump here. It's insulting for anyone to get a citizenship without paying their dues, waiting the time and going through the vetting process you go through when you do it the right way, like me. Yes, for those of us that have been through it, our families that have been through it, you know how long it takes, and you just get it. Also, it costs a lot of money, and there are so many things that you have to consider when you're traveling and what you're doing. Like, there was an entire period where my husband was grounded, and so we couldn't travel together outside of the country. And then see people that are just like, well, I hopped over the border and I have kids here, so like, just make me a citizen. And they are being treated better than people that are going through the process. Very, very frustrating. Maud writes, what happened to Kanye and Dave Chappelle? Have they been cloned? Love your work. No, Kanye has not been cloned. I told you I ran into him in Tokyo. It was kind of amazing. He and I just always kind of find each other in the world. Can't tell you about Dave Chappelle, but Kanye definitively has not been cloned. He was himself, totally himself. He's actually lost a ton of weight, looks very healthy. I think Los Angeles was very, very unhealthy for him, and he was going through an unhealthy spell, like just having gone through divorce and having paparazzi chase him. And in Tokyo, they just do not have that presence there, so I can just say Kanye was Kanye. Always funny, always interesting, and always himself. Carissa writes, apply for citizenship. It took my husband 15 years to become a citizen. He took the oath at a federal courthouse at the exact time that President Trump was taking the oath of office, January 2017. 15 years. And others insist on cutting the line and being like, well, look, my kid is sad. Swole Monkey writes, another great thing about this election, we at least finally know who will be president for the first time in a year. Yeah. Exactly, because you know Trump is no shrinking violet. He's not going to allow people to direct him, put stuff on the teleprompter, tell him what to say, tell him what to think. That is something that is a very good thing about him, that he's gutsy and that he's got that like New Yorker billionaire thing going on, and he's not going to be, he likes to be the boss. That is his entire brand, is being the boss. Abigail writes, how is Trump going to be able to deport all these people? I think Democrats will let off the gas with pandering to black votes and focus on Latinos. I think he's going to do it. Look, it's a second term. Everyone gets all YOLO in their second term, right? They're like, I don't care because I can't come back in here. And so he's going to now be doing it for the legacy. He said he was going to do it, and I think he is going to do it. And the best way to do it is to involve our military. The best way to do it is to involve our military. Easy. To also make them fearful not to cross into the border. That's another thing. I mean, hearing this guy in Poland, he's in Congress in Poland, speak on the stage on election night when we were with PBD, and his name is Dominik Tarczynski. And he said that one of the illegals crossed into Poland and killed their border agent. So they immediately passed a law that said, now we can shoot them. And as soon as that law was passed and they began saying, we're going to shoot you if you come across the border, maybe they shot a couple of people, no one crosses into the border anymore. That's how you learn. It's like, you play with fire, you get burned, you don't stick your hand in the fire anymore. You probably have to kill like 2 people. And I'm assuming that's what happened in Poland, like 2 people before people go, okay, we're not crossing in because they're insane and they're just killing people. And so we're not taken seriously because of this perceived compassion to always understand. And that's like, we are compassion, and we're turning our country into a dump in the process. And so I fully believe that Trump is going to be very tough on this. And as that guy said, when she's like, it's going to cost $88 million a year. I'm like, what? You write that to Zelensky every Wednesday. Like, shut up. Don't even speak to me about the cost of securing our border when you insist we send everything over to Israel and Ukraine and Afghanistan and every other country, Pakistan. So miss me with the budget on that. RG writes, Candace, can you speak on if DACA people are in danger of being deported? No, Trump always said that DACA people that were here under DACA were going to be fine. He said that last time. He's going to uphold that. He is speaking about everyone that has essentially crossed over since Kamala didn't do her job as the borders are. And it's ridiculous thinking that these people are settled. It's completely crazy. It's like, no, you just got to go back home, man. You got to go back home. This is crazy. I know that you guys are getting packets telling you how to break into America, but it turns out that there's a new boss. And you got to go home. You got to go home. You got to go see your grandma, your abuelita, whoever it is. You got to go see. People were coming in from Kazakhstan. I don't even know how to say grandma. I mean, it's completely crazy. People were coming in from China. They were flying over, dropping their passports and dropping their IDs, and then just crossing over their border. You got to go back to China. Okay? All right, guys, couple of announcements. Tomorrow is episode 100 of the Independent Podcast. I'm so excited. The big 100. So buy me presents. Yeah, give me presents. It's my podcast 100th birthday. And some presents you can get me is to subscribe to this channel because we're almost at 3 million subscribers. And you can also go to Locals if you want to donate to the show. Hey, we're flush now. To Trump presidency, we don't have to penny pinch anymore. We can donate whatever you can monthly to keep us independent and not having to worry about the YouTube censors. And what a better day to do it than tomorrow, which is going to be the 100th episode. But also say if you want to, you can head to Club Candace and support the show in whatever capacity you want to. We are still selling our hats. They have been a huge success. People love it. Made Kamala Indian again. Yes, we did. TikTok took it down, by the way. They said that this was harassment. Like, why would Kamala being Indian be harassment? I feel like TikTok has something against Indian people. Why do they want her to be black when she's not? What would be wrong with us making Kamala Indian again? I don't know. But they took down my post and said you're not allowed to do that. And we also, of course, have our celebrity tier mugs. If you want to pour liquid and into a nice mug for $47. Trump thumbs up. J-Lo cry, LeBron cry, Cardi B cry, then you head to clubcandace.com and get you some. Otherwise, we will see you guys here tomorrow.